And we are live on YouTube. And I will now let everybody who's coming in. And I think I need to open up the chat. Good evening, everybody. This is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. We just opened the doors. We'll let everybody in over the next couple of minutes, and then we'll get started. Welcome. If you're just joining us, this is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Just open the doors on YouTube and on Zoom. It takes a couple of minutes. If you're just joining us, this is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. If you're just joining us, we'll get started in just one more minute. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Losack. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Montgomery County Renters Alliance. Before I introduce our special guests, let me introduce our staff and board. With us tonight is Josh Fisher, the treasurer of the Montgomery County Renters Alliance Board of Directors. Our senior outreach coordinator, Jackie Mashinya, is with us. Emily Towie, our outreach coordinator, and Tim Huang, our outreach coordinator, as well as Pat Beckham and Malek Demir, who staff our operations, and also Hua Ho, who is our brand new Governor Westmore Service Year Program intern for the year. So welcome to all of you. Before I introduce our special guests, let me just say a few things up front. We are seeing across the state, and particularly in Montgomery County and Prince George's County and in Baltimore City, an uptick in renter destabilization. People are being evicted at unprecedented rates, particularly the most vulnerable and our seniors. So it is of deep concern to us. We are also seeing a 100% increase in tenant holding over evictions since 2023. Tenant holding over means that you stay one day longer than your lease term. So how does that happen? Well, your landlord determines that they're not going to renew the lease. And right now in the state of Maryland, with just 60 days notice before your lease ends, a landlord could say they're not going to renew, and they don't have to provide a justification for that. The Renters Alliance and our allies across the state, we're also the leading co-founders of Renters United Maryland, find this extremely objectionable. and unjust. And we have been fighting for years now and getting closer each year to passing a just cause or good cause eviction protection bill that would require a landlord to automatically renew a lease absent a good reason not to, a stated reason not to. So that is of deep concern to us, and we are seeing a lot of people who, just for pursuing promised or required services, who are finding their leases not renewed. And the power of a landlord to do that has a terrible chilling effect on whole communities, especially communities that are trying to organize to improve the quality of life in their buildings, to get maintenance and other services that they're entitled to. So I put that out there as something to consider as we have our discussion tonight. I'm very proud of our guests tonight who are joining us, because way back when Governor Wes Moore took office, myself and our board chair, William Roberts, were on the housing transition team, and we had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman by the name of Jake Day to discuss what renters need in the state of Maryland. And we urged him to consider putting together something that would benefit renters in the Department of Housing and Community Development, not just building housing and not just landlords and not just people who own homes, excuse me, but nearly 40% of the state that now lives in rental housing, not as a station on the way to owning, but as a permanent way of life. And with that, between the Secretary of Housing, Jake Day, and Governor Wes Moore, they put together a housing package that passed the Maryland General Assembly, I think 2 years ago now, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that was included in that legislation was the establishment of Maryland's first Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs. And with us tonight is the new director of that program, Elise Thompson, and along with her staff, Emily Button and Melissa Little. So I'll turn it over to Elise to give us an overview of the office, to introduce herself a little bit. She has a very impressive resume and background. And so I'll turn it over to you, Elise. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Um, Thank you for the introduction. As Matt said, my name is Elise Thompson. I am the director of the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs. We are housed within Maryland's Department of Housing and Community Development. I just wanted to say that we are a small but mighty team of 3 at the moment. I am the director. I joined the department at the end of May. I came from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in D.C., where I was a practicing lawyer for 12 years. I have a background in both law and urban planning, and so a big part of my experience has been in the housing and community development world. I wanted to also hand the mic over to both Melissa Little and Emily Button on my team so that they could introduce themselves as well and tell you a little bit about their backgrounds. And so, Melissa, I see you're already off mute, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself first.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. My name is Melissa Little. I am the tenant landlord liaison, and I've been with this particular department since February. I did have another role with DHCD of a little over 2 years ago, maybe about 2 years ago. I worked for another Section 8 program under DHCD. I have experience working in fair housing agencies, Section 8, special housing programs, Hope 6, etc. So I've had, quite a few years of experience with different housing programs, and I'm happy to be here.
And Emily?
Hi. I'm Emily Button. I'm the Partnerships and Outreach Manager for OTLA, and my background includes about 15 years of experience in community building and housing. I have worked in a variety of affordable communities in the DC metro area. And I've also been a tenant. I've been an advocate for tenants. I've worked with resident services, and I've also worked on the property management side of things. So I am working on building relationships with tenants and also with real estate agents and landlords to provide training on tenant rights issues and ensure that they're equipped to be aware of tenant rights and follow the new requirements and aware of what they're supposed to do. So it's my pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for taking time.
Yes, we do appreciate you guys making space for us to come and talk to you about the office and telling you about the things that we are currently working on right now, and also to get your feedback on what are the hot issues that you all are experiencing, and so that we can use that to inform how our office is focusing our energy, especially as we get off the ground and get running. As Matt mentioned, the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs was created under the Renters' Rights and Stabilization Act of 2024. And, our main purpose under the law is to ensure access to educational resources for tenants, which can be informing people about what are their legal rights, providing a point for people to report violations of their legal rights and understand how they can enforce their rights. And then offering access to financial counseling and putting people in touch with the resources that are available. A big part of our role is going to be working with the authorities that pursue housing discrimination and other illegal housing practices, although these are all things that we are still working to build up to doing at this stage. But that is the long-term goal of where we're headed. Under the statute, we are required to do certain tasks. So that includes developing resources for tenants to understand and exercise their legal rights. One of the main ways that we do that is through the Tenants' Bill of Rights, which we publish every year. We work with landlords to implement the Tenant Bill of Rights and to make sure that the information is distributed widely and that it is being included in leases. We're also here to receive tenants' reports on violations of their rights. And we are here to help direct people to the right enforcement authorities given the issues that they're facing. We are also providing referrals to tenants for community resources and supports. We are doing that primarily through Melissa is our tenant liaison, and she's the one who's fielding the calls. And we're keeping track of resources available all across the state, and helping people to connect to what's available locally. We are also collaborating with other state agencies, county governments, and local governments on tenant advocacy, both in terms of understanding what's already happening on the ground in local communities, but also in terms of understanding how tenant rights issues vary across the state. Depending on, the situation we're seeing, the situation is a little different in rural areas versus urban areas, and understanding what's happening in a nuanced way across the state. And so working with local government in order to identify how things are different and how policy should be shaped differently based on the environment. And then our office, I'm not going to go too much into this in this presentation, but our office also oversees the tenant's right of first refusal and exclusive negotiation period, which comes up when a landlord wants to sell rental property. So just to say, to group all of our tasks into one sort of nice infographic here, these are the main things that we are focusing on: the right of first refusal and the tenant opportunity to purchase, the Tenant Bill of Rights, tenant landlord outreach and education. We are also responsible for collecting eviction data from courts across the state and doing detailed analysis of that eviction data and using it to inform policy. Our office also staffs the Access to Counsel and Evictions Task Force that was created under a separate legislation back in 2021, and they are the task force that has been coordinating the access to counsel. So during eviction proceedings, being able to provide attorneys free of charge for tenants that meet certain income qualifications. And then we also, as I mentioned earlier, we coordinate with enforcement entities to help make sure that people know where to go when there are enforcement issues. I do want to point out that some of the things that we are authorized to do under the statute, but are not yet doing. We also are able to conduct fair housing testing. We are able to identify landlords that aren't in compliance with federal, state, and local laws and refer them to enforcement agencies. And we are able to collect information about landlord and tenant concerns and inform future policies and service decisions. At this stage of our office, we are very much in the stage of getting ourselves off the ground. Some of these other tasks are going to come later as we either expand our office. For example, fair housing testing is going to be something that requires more resources than we have right now. And so, it is in the long-term vision of the things that this office does, but we're not yet doing it. I also want to be really clear that what we're allowed to do as an office is actually set by the statute that created us. And so even though based on the emails and calls that we've been fielding thus far, we want to make it really clear that OTLA does not provide direct legal advice or legal representation to individuals. And we don't provide that advice to either tenants or to landlords. And we also are not providing direct individual assistance in terms of shepherding individual cases. We're also not mediators. I know some local counties have a formal mediation process built into, say, a consumer protection division, where they will actually help sit a tenant down with their landlord and sort of try to work out disagreements in advance. We're not doing that. And it's also really clear we are not a direct enforcement authority ourselves. So sometimes we get emails with people basically stating their claim and their arguments and making their arguments to us and asking us to intervene. That's not the role that we play. One of the big things that we do is we publish the Tenants' Bill of Rights. It is the statute that created our office also established stronger protections for tenant rights, and it requires our office to publish the Tenant Bill of Rights every single year. And it effectively is to make it easier for both tenants and landlords to understand the state and federal laws that apply to residential leases in the state of Maryland, to make it more transparent and to make it more accessible. I think that in some instances, we certainly see scenarios where landlords don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And we don't know, tenants don't know what is reasonable to expect or what is required to expect of their landlords. So this is putting all of the information together in one much more accessible, easy to understand document. We are publishing it in 18 different languages to make it as accessible as possible. We do have them on our website if people need access in languages that are not available on our website right now, absolutely reach out to our office and we will see what we can do about making them available. We do have the resources to continue to translate into other languages. And so we're happy to make that available if there is a need for it. So definitely reach out to us. The idea is that, most leases are long and written in dense legalese. This is a sort of one-stop shop that summarizes everything. We began requiring it as of July 1st of this year. We are actually, even though we just published a version, we are actually going to release a updated version in the next couple of weeks, and it will go into effect starting October 1st. And then from here on out, we will be releasing it once a year, usually published in the September 1st and then going into effect on October 1st. We've moved to this cycle. And the reason why we're doing two releases back to back is because we are updating it to incorporate new laws that were implemented during this upcoming legislative session. Oftentimes the laws go into effect starting October 1st. So we want to make sure that we are doing that latest date that most laws are going into effect so that it is always the most up-to-date version possible. So that is why we're moving to the October 1st publication and effective date. So what does the Tenant Bill of Rights do? It is effectively a summary of existing rights and laws at the state level. It is provides an overview of the key areas of landlord and tenant law, and it is meant to be accessible, as I was saying earlier, and it's supposed to be a jumping off point. I want to be really clear that in providing a summary of lots of different laws, some of the nuance is gone. There are exceptions. It is not a legally binding document in and of itself, as much as it is helping. The idea is that we hope that people identify where things are going wrong and are able to quickly know that, like, oh, these are the rights I should be enforcing or demanding that my landlord comply with. So because I may not know the ins and outs of everything that's in my lease, but I know that these are the minimum requirements that these are the minimum rights and responsibilities that I have and that my landlord has. So if something is going wrong, I know it sooner rather than later. It is important to know that the Tenant Bill of Rights doesn't create new requirements or new protections. It's really just summarizes what already exists in the law. And so it doesn't replace or change existing laws to the extent that, you're in a very specific situation where there is a difference between what the law says and what the Tenant Bill of Rights says. Obviously the law is what governs and what will apply. But it does not substitute, it's not a substitute for anything. One other very important caveat about the Tenant Bill of Rights is that many local jurisdictions, either county or city, local jurisdictions may have additional protections. Those will also apply if they are more stringent protections than what exists at the state or federal level. Your local jurisdiction cannot offer lower protections than what is offered by the state or the federal governments, but they can provide additional requirements. So it's always important to check to make sure if there are other local laws that may offer additional protections to tenants. And, the Tenant Bill of Rights, like I said earlier, is a jumping off point. It doesn't replace consulting with a legal professional to make sure that that your specific circumstance and fact patterns aren't unique and more complex. Oftentimes we find that there are a lot of things going on simultaneously. And so what applies in your specific situation is a conversation you should have with either supportive services or with a lawyer, or don't just rely on what's said in the Tenant Bill of Rights.
Or the Renters Alliance.
Or the Renters Alliance. They're an excellent resource. And I put up a QR code just so that you can quickly go to the page that has the Tenant Bill of Rights in it. You'll see the Tenant Bill of Rights, just an overview of the areas that are addressed. So everything from the application process, lease and tenancies, security deposits, going over the conditions of the units, what happens, what are things that landlords are prohibited from doing, for example, and also includes resources for tenants. And so I just wanted this to be readily accessible. This QR code goes to the Tenant Bill of Rights page of our website, but our website also has other resources. We are working to build out what's on the website, so definitely check back often, because we are continuing to add more to the website as we continue on. And I did just want to flag very briefly that our office also handles the right of first refusal and the exclusive negotiation period. The key things that it applies to landlords who own 3 or fewer residential units. And if they decide they want to sell, or if they get a third-party offer to sell the house, there's a process now required by state law that requires landlords to give tenants the opportunity to purchase the property before they list this property for sale or before they accept a third-party offer. Landlords have to provide notice to the tenants, and tenants get 30 days to respond to the notice. And until they've completed that process, landlords can't move forward with the sale. If you're under that process, you should just know that all landlord-tenant laws continue to apply during the entire process, whether you are trying to buy the house or not. And so know that even if those two processes are happening simultaneously, none of the requirements about notice if the lease is ending or all of those requirements still apply to you. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of our top priorities for the current fiscal year. Our office is a few months into existence, and so we are really working on building the infrastructure that we need to handle incoming requests from the public. We are exploring software that helps us to field the number of calls and emails that we get regularly. I think the last time I looked at our inbox, my first week, we were getting maybe 3 to 5 emails a day. The last time I looked, it's been a week or two, we're fielding 50 plus emails a day from the public. And so being able to, you see all 3 of us here on this call, being able to field calls and emails from across the state, we need to be able to do it in a efficient but comprehensive way. And so we're working on building that infrastructure. We are actively working to build relationships with stakeholders across the state to understand what is already going on locally, what are the resources available, who's already been in this space, much like Renters United, and build those relationships so that we can both support and coordinate across the entire state. We've been collecting eviction data from the courts for the past couple of years. Starting October 1st, the courts are going to be required to report an expanded set of information to us. And so we want to be able to use that data, incorporate the new data and use that data to identify eviction hotspots across the state and identify how are we providing support in places where there are hotspots. Emily is already all across the state doing trainings for stakeholder groups. And I will say, if you have requests for trainings on specific topics, We do on our website have a form where you can fill out a request for a training. And so that is how we're coordinating requests, how we're fielding requests from the public. We are providing trainings to real estate companies, landlords. We're providing state trainings in partnership with local governments who are running fairs. We are providing trainings to tenant groups have reached out, community organizations. So, if you've got a request, please feel free to submit that on our website. And related to that, we are building training materials for small landlords in particular. And we also are working to evaluate the enforcement referral process to make sure that it is efficient and responsive. And those are some of the key things that we have that we've identified that we are working on. We absolutely would love to hear feedback from you all about what you think are top priorities that we need to be aware of as we develop our working plans. And so absolutely, we want that feedback from you all. And I just wanted to flag one bit of news with the legislation that created our office also included some additional requirements that impact evictions. And so we did just want to flag that from the data that we recently pulled, comparing October to June of 2024, basically, so fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25. I'm new to the state, so I may not have those fiscal years right. But comparing the most recent year of data with the previous year, we do see that the failure to pay rent filings were down 9%, most likely because of the increased filing fees, perhaps. We don't know for certain. These are just guesses that we are making based on what was changed. And then evictions were down 8% over that same time period. Montgomery County has consistently a lower eviction rate relative to the total population. I mean, it's our most populous, our largest populated county, but has a relatively low eviction rate. And I'm really curious to dig into more about why that is, what's happening at the county level here that isn't happening in other places, see if there are best practices that can be shared and developed elsewhere. But the last thing I wanted to flag is our contact information. Our hotline number will go to Melissa. It's a 800 number, but it really does go to a real live human being. And the email address where you can send emails to us, it goes to actually all three of us. So please know that there are real people on the other end of these contact lists, emails, contacts. There are real people on the other end of these contacts, and we are here to help. And we welcome folks reaching out to us.
Really terrific, Elise, and we are so grateful to have you here with us this evening, and really delighted to have your office be created and to see staff with you and to see it begin. As I say, the history of the United States Housing and Urban Development Department, as well as state housing departments, has largely focused on building more housing and home ownership. And the way in which we're housed in the United States and in Maryland and in Montgomery County is increasingly becoming more renter rather than home owner. And as I say, we went from, I think, about 23% renter in 2007 to nearly 40% now. And that 40% demographic has changed quite a bit too. It's not only just working and low income folks with a small amount of upper middle class folks, but now it includes everybody across the economic spectrum. And of course, a whole lot more senior citizens. I'm going to ask a couple of questions off the bat, and my staff, if you can chime in with what you're seeing in the chat, best as we can answer. Again, the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs for the state is not a mediator and is not an enforcer of local issues, so you should come to us for that. If we could also put our email and contact information in the chat, I think that would be helpful. One of the things you mentioned, Elise, was that when you all receive emails or phone calls, are you going to be doing referrals to local advocacy groups or local housing departments as in response to those inquiries?
Absolutely. So we have seen, I will say when we get emails and phone calls from people, oftentimes a big part of what we're doing is having conversations about what does this mean? What are our options that are available to us? How can we respond to XYZ issue that we're having with our landlord? So we're sort of talking people through what are the options available for the fact pattern. We are oftentimes seeing people with multiple issues simultaneously, and so we are letting them know who are the players involved and who can help, whether that is referring them to the ACE hotline if they're at risk of eviction, whether it's referring them to local code enforcement, if there are issues with the quality of their unit. We are referring them, sometimes we have help to when people are in subsidized housing and there are issues, sometimes we're picking up the phone and calling other people within DHCD, either because it's a property that we're responsible for, or we are finding if DHCD has relationships with the property where we can call and say, hey, I'm getting reports that this tenant isn't getting a response. Can you reach out to them? So that, what we're doing, it's very much specific to each individual case. And we are sometimes coming back multiple times to understand how the issue is continuing to evolve. But a big part of what we're doing is helping people strategize and how to respond and figuring out who may be available to help.
I think, serving as a statewide navigator for people seeking assistance will be very helpful. But to illustrate, if somebody called from Baltimore and they had a Baltimore problem, you'd probably connect them to either a Baltimore nonprofit or the Baltimore Housing Department and whatever piece in the housing department they needed to go to as you build out your operation.
Yes.
That's terrific. And you mentioned an intake system, but it might be helpful down the road. Will you? I imagine you will, but you'll be collecting the data on the types of inquiries you're getting and what categories they come in, code, rights, so on.
Yes.
Terrific. You mentioned court info. Court info is going to be changing the data from the courts. I'm not sure I'm aware of what the improvements might be. Can you tell us?
So they are now, previously they were I don't remember all of the categories of data that was collected. I'd be happy to share the legislation, dig it up and send it back to you. But right now they're collecting information on just very basic bare bone things about the eviction, like when was it filed, what was the outcome of it, what type of case was it? And so the new data requires more detailed information about things like, did the tenant show up in court? Were they represented by an attorney? What is the address of what is the information about the landlord? So like we can see if there are issues that are concentrated in a particular say complex or with a particular landlord, and think about if there are concentrations, what are the things that we can do to help improve the situation there. So it is more the data that is being collected under the new law is going to be able to help us identify more clear issues and target better, I believe.
Wow, that's great. We'd love to see that. We have urged that in Montgomery County, made some progress, but even better to see it statewide. Last question, you mentioned doing trainings for local advocacy groups and small landlords. The Renters Alliance has been pressing Montgomery County, so far unsuccessfully, but we have a long view of things. But we are urging the county to consider requiring property managers and landlords to be trained and certified in order to be property managers and landlords. And I'm wondering if you all have given any thought to offering a service statewide, at least on the statewide best practices and laws affecting landlords and property managers. So much we see problems in buildings have to do with uneducated or untrained property staff who create problems rather than knowing what to do to prevent problems in the first place. And if they only knew what the law was, or they were trained in good or best practices, we might not have some of the disagreements and disputes that we see. Have you all thought, and I know this isn't going to happen tomorrow, but have you all given any thought to that?
Yes, we actually have. That is on our list of the things that we want to do. We've been thinking about what sort of we have been thinking about a best practices sort of toolkit for landlords and property managers. We are hoping that the Tenant Bill of Rights plays a function on that to the extent that now it is at least identifying in a manner that is, I mean, we talk about requirements being apparent for tenants, but it's just as important that they are apparent and obvious to landlords and property managers as well. And, you know, we hope that a tenant having the Tenant Bill of Rights and being able to walk in and say, this says that you're supposed to do X, Y, Z thing will give them more traction in conversations with their landlord. So we absolutely hope that it is a tool that allows the tenants to advocate for themselves more directly with landlords or property managers who don't know the requirements. But it is absolutely, you know, the landlord education piece is very important. We are the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs, and you know, the education is for both parties.
Great. Well, we welcome the landlords into the office. We suggested you all create just for tenants, but they're okay. They can come too. So anyway, great. Jackie, Emily, Tim, and company, do we have any questions for this terrific staff?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So in the Tenants Bill of Rights, there were like a couple of different factors, like the right of first refusal and some of the fees that were dependent on how many units your landlord owns. How can a tenant figure that out? To see if they qualify, to find out, does my landlord own 4 units? Do they own 6? That will affect what fees impact me, will impact whether I get the right of first refusal. How can a tenant figure out what other properties their landlord owns?
That is a very good question. I don't know that I have an answer off the top of my head. I don't know if Emily has an idea based on her experience.
So for the right of first refusal, I can definitely speak to that. And it is, so a landlord could own, say 10 separate condos, but each condo would be subject to the right of first refusal because it is based on residential rental properties of 3 units or less. So if those tenants usually know, because it's a single family home, it's a small building, or a single family home that's subdivided into 3 units. And even if the landlord owns 10 single family homes that are subdivided into 3 units, each one of those would be subject to the right of first refusal. Where it gets more complicated is when you have a landlord for the application fees. For example, there's a threshold that says the landlord owns more than 5 units. There's an application fee limitation that applies. I don't know that it would be terribly straightforward to find out in all cases. I would say in most cases, most tenants that I encounter do know whether their landlord owns a bunch of units or just a handful. It's basically intended to distinguish between smaller landlords running out just a handful of properties and the Grady management level operations, but it is not, I think that there is not a perfect way for tenants to be certain in some cases that it might not be easy for a tenant to find out whether their landlord owns 5 properties or 6 properties, for example.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes landlords own several different companies, and then each company owns different properties. So it can get a little complicated.
I would say
Right.
on a basic level, if you find yourself maybe renting a single family house and it's not clear if your landlord owns more than one, I might just ask in a really conversational way, in a non-confrontational, conversational way with your landlord and find out. And don't make it about trying to catch them, but just have a normal conversation with them.
Sure. Okay, that's a good tip. Yeah, so the scenario I'm thinking of is more like the application fee. So like prospective tenants, the landlord wants to charge a $60 application fee. It would be limited to 25 if they owned 8 plus units, but you have no idea. And yeah, like for tenants, like if they're getting charged that fee, is that something that if they want to file a complaint with like their local landlord tenant office, they don't really know what the landlord was allowed to charge them or not. So they don't know if they had the right to complain or not, is the thing I'm trying to touch on. But I'd see like, yeah, you could just try talking to them, but I'm just thinking more about like, yeah, prospective tenants who don't want to pay a larger application fee than they should. Okay, there was a question in the Q&A that I can answer. It asked if this is a new bill. If so, how far back will it be able to apply to old rental situations? Will it go back to 2003? And I'll just reiterate what Elise said, that the Bill of Tenants' Rights it's not a new bill, it's not a new piece of legislation, it's a summary of existing tenant laws. So this is not like a new bill that just went through and passed. It's just a summary of your existing laws. I'm sorry, your existing rights.
Yes, it did not have to be attached to your lease for you to be able to print it out and show your landlord what applies. It is broadly accessible and it lays out the legal requirements that apply, and they all apply regardless of whether or not you were physically given a copy as part of your lease.
Thank you. On that note, if someone is presented with a lease after October 1st that does not have a Bill of Rights attached, where should that complaint be directed?
I think you can let us know that. We would be happy to reach out to a landlord and reiterate that this requirement does apply and that it needs to be included going forward.
Okay. And then another question, is the DHCD Tenant Bill of Rights similar or different from the NLIHC's Tenant Bill of Rights? And I believe that's the National Low Income Housing. Um,
Right.
Uh,
and assuming that they are different.
I would presume that they are different too, because again, ours is a reflection of the state and federal laws. The federal laws are obviously going to be applicable across the country, but the state laws are different. And so, I have seen sort of model tenant bill of rights on the internet, and in general, you should know that those model versions, there's no state that could pick it up and implement it exactly like that from the perspective of what's going to apply is going to hinge on the state laws. So the model version basically doesn't exist, if that makes any sense.
Right. And let me emphasize that the National Low Income Housing Coalition is a nonprofit coalition, and that's as Ali says, it's a model. It's what they're suggesting the Tenants Bill of Rights should be. The Maryland Bill of Rights is based on Maryland legislation.
Um, Okay, another question. What about helping blind or sight challenged and disabled prospective tenants and current tenants getting help filling out applications? Um, I can, I can, I have a suggestion for that. There's some, it's very limited, and we always advocate that there's a great need for this, but there are some navigators that exist in Montgomery County, that do assist with helping to fill out applications, um, for SNAP benefits, for HOC to join the HOC wait list, those kinds of like lengthy Medicaid, those kinds of complicated applications. There are some navigators available. Um, I can put their information in the chat. I don't know if you guys have any more information
And you can also
at the
reach
state
out to
level.
us if you have a tenant who is seeking resource support, who is blind or disabled in some way and cannot access that information. You can contact us and we'll help navigate you to the place where you need to go. Obviously, if the person is able to dial 311, they can also ask the 311 operator to direct them where they need to go. A couple reminders on some of the acronyms we're hearing. Elise had mentioned the ACE program, that stands for the Access in Counsel in Evictions. And Emily mentioned the HOC program, which is the Housing Opportunities Commission. That's the commission that handles vouchers and other services for low-income tenants in Montgomery County. What else do we got?
Another question, in addition to attaching a copy of the Tenants' Bill of Rights and incorporating it into new leases, what are the requirements for landlords informing existing tenants of the Tenants' Bill of Rights? Like, do they have a signage requirement, anything of that sort?
So under the law, the only requirement is for landlords to attach the tenant bill of rights to leases going forward. We are advising landlords to share it publicly, post it in publicly available places within a community if it's a larger community, or to share it with their tenants, but they are not required to do so.
Thank you. Maybe, I don't know, is anyone else seeing anything right now?
Last chance, folks. If you have a question or concern, please post it in the chat for the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs from the Department of Housing and Community Development for the state. Now would be the time.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it was asked, but will the slides be available? Somehow if someone asked to get emailed a link for the slides.
This town hall is being recorded on YouTube, and the entire slideshow is in that recording. And everybody who is on this town hall will be in our database and receive our newsletter, which will include a link to this town hall's recording on YouTube. So you'll definitely have that. And Elise, if you're able, we'd love to have the copy of the PowerPoint, which we can also put in our newsletter separately from the YouTube recording for people to.
Yeah, we can share that with you. I'll email it to you.
Great.
Uh,
Anything
No,
else?
not a question, but just say for the people asking about needing help with applications for some people with different disabilities, I did include the Hungry for Change navigators. Please be advised they're like on a volunteer basis, so they are limited in their services, but you can reach out to them and see what their availability is like. They help people with rental assistance applications, utility applications, those kinds of things.
Terrific. Then I want to first say thank you so much to Elise Thompson, the new director of the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs, and her staff, Emily Button and Melissa Little. Welcome to the challenges of landlord tenant rights and stable, affordable housing in the state of Maryland. We've got a big mountain to climb, but it's worthy and important. And I think that we will all share in those benefits when we get some of these challenges resolved. So we really thank you for coming on our town hall. I do have to threaten you that we will ask you to come back again. As you know, anybody who's done outreach and education, there's no slaying of this dragon. We have to do it again and again and again. So we will welcome you back, hopefully some months down the road, and we'll do it again and give you an opportunity to share with us your progress and updates.
We'd be happy to come back.
So with that, let me now turn to my staff, who will go through some of the resources that we report on at every town hall. And if you have any questions or concerns about anything else other than the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs that you'd like us to address, please put it in the chat. So I'll turn that over to staff.
I can talk about or that which was mentioned several times tonight is the Access to Counsel and Evictions program, known as ACE. So this is for low income tenants who are facing eviction. It could be for failure to pay rent, tenant holding over, or breach of lease. They do not represent affirmative cases. So if you want to sue your proactively sue your landlord for breach of lease, they're not able to represent you in that. It's only when you're the defendant, like your landlord was suing you for breach of lease, failure to pay rent, tenant holding over. There you can call, and I'll put this in the chat, but so you can call 211 to do like a general intake. Or you can also call one of the two legal aid providers directly, one of them being Maryland Legal Aid and the other one being CASA. Even like I said, they do have some income requirements. If you don't meet if you're over income or you don't qualify for their services, they can still give you advice or point you in the right direction of who you can talk to. If you need a private attorney or something else, they can still give you advice about your case, even if they cannot represent you. And they ask that you call them sooner rather than later. If you get a court summons, don't while they are available for some same-day representation in court for failure to pay rent, it's better the sooner you can get in touch with them, so you can share your documents with them. You know, maybe there's a defense they have for you, maybe they can grant you a continuance. It's just important that you get in touch as soon as possible with them. And Tim put the main site, but I will include CASA's specific number and Maryland Legal Aid specific number. You can also contact us if you're not sure if this would be a good question for the lawyers. If you can ask us if you need guidance on that.
Yeah, we'd like to make sure, if you're not sure, that no point in going to the lawyer first. You might want to check out to see if you have a case, see whether it's serious enough. We might be able to give you some advice on how to head things off at the pass before they get escalated to a legal battle. However, what Emily said was extremely important. Do not skip court. If you're going to court, make sure that you attend court. And if you're low income, a renter who cannot afford a lawyer on your own, there is a program, the Access to Counsel and Evictions program, and we are working with them and will help you with them if you need that help. So please keep that in mind. Who's next?
I'm next. All right, I'm going to be speaking to you guys about the Office of Landlord Tenant Affairs, specific to Montgomery County, not to be confused with Elisa's office, and that is ALTA. And they're charged with informing the public of their general rights and responsibilities of tenants and landlords and helping them resolve the disputes amicably. It is their goal to provide as much information as possible to help avoid problems and make the landlord-tenant relationship work as well efficiently as possible. So what services do they offer? ALTA provides resources including the Landlord-Tenant Handbook, which outlines your basic rights and responsibilities of tenants and landlords. They'll offer the Ordinary Wear and Tear booklet, information regarding the eviction process, including eviction prevention rights for those that rent rooms, and they also provide sample leases. You can also file complaints through the Office of Landlord-Tenant Affairs. A tenant organization, or landlord who believes there has been a violation of landlord-tenant law is free to file a complaint with the Office of Landlord-Tenant Affairs. They'll then investigate the complaint and provide mediation. However, before filing a complaint, we always say try to work with your landlord first, and then you take it up to the next level. If it's unable to be resolved in mediation, the case is then referred to CALTA, which is the Commission of the Office of Landlord-Tenant Affairs. It's made up of tenants, landlords, and the public. And I also provide, okay, there's a link there that Tim provided to the Alta. Okay, and if you need to get in touch with them, you can call 311 or follow the link in the chat. And if you ever need help navigating the process, you can always feel free to contact Renters Alliance and we'll help you through that as well.
And coming in from stage left,
Hey, so my name is Tim, and I will be letting you know about code enforcement. So if your unit has issues with, the physical or structural parts, like if you have any leaks, if there's mold, if your appliances are broken, you can call code. You can call 311 or submit a complaint online. And I think we'll link a link below as well. And like with Ulta, the process is that you should let your maintenance team know that something is wrong and give them reasonable time to fix it or to respond. And what's reasonable is kind of subjective, right? If there's like a big flood, your roof is coming down, then that's, I would say give them 24 hours. But if it's something like a light bulb is out or something like that, I would give them a little bit of time. But again, it's subjective. And I think it's also important, on the other hand, to not wait too long, right? You have these rights, like if your AC isn't working, your heat isn't working during certain periods of the year, don't suffer through it, right? Definitely call code if it's taking, a little bit too long. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And if you live in one of the jurisdictions, like Tacoma Park, Gettysburg, or Rockville, they might have their own department. So, you might have to, you can always try going to the county, but they might redirect you, but just something to keep in mind. And one thing that, that could be useful for code is that if you want to start a rent escrow case where you would pay your rent to a separate fund, because of your health and safety being threatened by a lack of maintenance, then you would, it would really help your case to have a code inspector come out and have a report on that. And if you want to know more about rent escrow, reach out to us and we can talk to you about it. But yeah, anything else I missed?
nope, I think that's good. Also, just as a reminder on the rent escrow case, one of the things that the Renters Alliance fought for and got passed in order to avoid a more substantial case of rent escrow having to go to the courts is that if a code inspector comes in and finds that there's a violation and issues a citation, and the landlord does not fix it in a reasonable period of time, you may request of that investigator in Montgomery County to authorize you to pay for it yourself as long as the cost is up to 1 month's rent, and then deduct that from your rent. But that must be done in writing with the investigator from the Department of Housing and Community Affairs authorizing it. So don't do it on your own, but definitely it does make it easier for those minor repairs that are just not getting done by your landlord that a code inspector says has to be fixed. Jackie, what are we doing next?
Hi. All right, so our next town hall is going to be September 10th, and I'll be facilitating it, and we're going to do a back to school theme there, and we're going to have panelists joining us along with Q&A and providing resources to parents of school-aged children who are facing housing instability and kind of talking about the effects of that on academic achievement. So please join us on September 10th for that informative town hall.
And you all will receive the links to that and information that gives more detail as we get closer to September 10th. I'm sure everybody here knows and everybody listening that housing instability is a direct determinant of social health, welfare, and prosperity. And when you have a lack of it, we have a lack of health, welfare, and prosperity, which also includes impacts on academic achievement for children who have to move from school to school because their homes are not stable or they're experiencing issues like mold and vermin and other maintenance issues that don't go fixed in an appropriate period of time. So that will be our next discussion, and we will continue this every couple of weeks on various topics. A reminder again, the Maryland General Assembly, which will begin in early January, probably I think the 8th of January, will consider again good cause eviction protection. That law got as far as the House of Delegates with a 96-37 vote in favor, but it went to the Senate side, the Judicial Proceedings Committee, which is chaired by Senator William Smith, but that never came to a vote. And was blocked last year and the year before last and this most recent year. The chairman, Senator Will Smith, says that he is interested in passing it, but we are concerned about amendments that might weaken other renter protections like rent stabilization. There's a lot of influence of the landlord and developer community to resist that legislation, but we're also a large community ourselves. And so it's very important that you stay in touch with your elected officials, reach out to them, demand the rights that we're entitled to, and show your influence in the Maryland General Assembly. We'll keep you informed as we get closer, but there's no time like the present. So our colleague Pat had to leave early, but she would tell you one thing for sure, that if you're not registered to vote, please do so. And if you'd like a button that says, I'm a renter and I vote, we'll send you one. Just email us and give us your address, and we're happy to mail that to you. So with that, let me say again, thank you to the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs and to all the staff. Welcome. And thank you to all my staff and all of you who attended this town hall this evening. It is on YouTube if you'd like to watch or see the PowerPoint again. And with that, I say good night to everybody.